There was really no one better we could have had here to be present on this talk. One of the most important patrons and champions of art in India, someone who has supported countless art and culture initiatives and brought so many yet undiscovered gems of Indian art to all of our attention. She is, of course, also the force behind two beautiful museum spaces, which is soon to be added by a recently announced standalone museum, bringing an art and culture to the forefront in India and championing our artists globally. Dinesh Vazirani is a co-founder of Saffronart and one of the leading auctioneers in the country. He has led some of the most important auctions of Indian art, including incredible sales in recent times, with works going for record prices. He is also someone who's had a profound impact on my personal career in art. Besides being a pro on the auction podium, Dinesh, if you don't know him already, is a master conversationalist with a brilliant sense of humor. And I can't wait to see him lead and steer this conversation. Coming out of the pandemic, we are starting almost with a blank slate. As we begin to give shape to our collective future, I hope some of the values, principles, and ideas discussed on this stage will be the starting point of our work towards further building and strengthening the pillars of art and culture in the country and beyond. With that, I hope you enjoy the talk. I'll hand over to Dinesh.
Jaya, why is it so dark in here? Is there illusion that it's hot outside, or keep it cool? No, it's fine.
No, it's fine.
It's fine.
I think better.
For all of you who don't know Kiran, Kiran's not someone who's just involved in art. She is a bronze medalist in bridge at the Asian Games, a gold medalist at the Commonwealth Games in bridge. She watches every sporting event between tennis and cricket. She partied with the Indian winning team after we won the World Cup. So her passions run across many, many things. And lastly, and most importantly, both Kiran and Shiv are probably India's biggest philanthropists. What they give back is absolutely incredible. And I want to start with a personal story of mine. So I told Kiran one day, I said, I want to meet Shiv. And she said, why? I said, I want to understand what makes him give back like this. What is that feeling? What makes you do it? That you give so much of your wealth back to the community, to people, to actually encourage them, to educate them, to create institutions and structures. And what he said when he was younger and he was in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu.
No, he was in Delhi.
In Delhi at that time, yeah. And he said, I've always thought, my family is three people. There's Kiran, Roshni, and me. And of course, there's Shikhar and everyone else now. But he said, someone told me and mentioned to me that one arm of yours, the fourth arm of your family, should be philanthropy. So pretty much 25% of what I earn, I give back. Because they adopted the community as a family. Part of their family, it became who they are. And Kiran, I want to start with the first question. Why do you love art? What is it about art that you like?
I think art is a part of today. It's difficult to divorce my being from art. If I look at work, I feel it should be in my collection. And then if it's gone, I feel very distraught. Even if it's just a small work. And I'd say that, I should have gone earlier. How could I lose that work? So these are small things. But honestly, when I started art, when I started the thought of starting a museum, it was about 15, 18 years ago. The museum is now 11 years old. I didn't really have any idea where this was going to go to. It was just that I had a reasonably small collection. I felt I would like to display it so people could see it and put it into a public space. I never imagined the reality of the museum was going to be quite the way it is. So, yeah, art is really, when we say, what is your life made up of? For me, it's made up of my family. It's made of art and what I'm doing with it, and it's made up of bridge, which I play, of course.
I will question you later on that, not right now.
Okay.
You know, the thought of building a museum, and that ties in with culture itself. You know, India has a rich culture, 5,000 years. In fact, I remember in Mumbai, had these big billboards once. It was the UK tourism department. It says culture is Great Britain. And I said, are you kidding? You know, these billboards all over the place. In some ways, you have adopted India's culture in ways that no one has. What is it about culture that excites you?
You know, when I look at the Indian culture, there's 5,000 years of unbelievable assets that were produced. I mean, if you look at the things like what's that, Mohenjo-daro or later Janta-Ellora, Hampi, of course these were townships and these were worlds. And then coming down to the Mughal miniatures, and then the other miniatures and sculptures, and then the temples like Meenakshi and a whole host of temples, other religious establishments. I mean, the myriad of events that culture has defined in India, it's just amazing. And if we can link them together to make something imposing and not divide them into little bits, I think we'll do ourselves a great service. And to add to that aspect, art gels with the culture we have. We have the culture. We can use art and build along that and make it something more important, rather than, losing that cultural heritage of ours.
You know, I mean, Kiran, you are pretty much the biggest collector in the art world today. And what surprises me, and maybe you can't answer this question, but I will try. What has stopped other people who have the means and have the so-called access to things not coming into the art world and absorbing India's culture like you did? Why? What makes you different?
I don't know what makes me different, but I'll say something that when I started the museum and KNMA, it was started, I thought it was going to be a niche establishment. I never imagined that I was going to, grow the way it has grown in the last 11 years. And at that time, I really thought that I'll start, and there were many people at a sort of small size who could have done things. And I had expected people would join and make this into a movement of some kind. But it never happened. Unfortunately, I don't know what the reason was. And as the time has gone on, I've been kind of a little lonely at the top.
Kiran, that's not true. She actually enjoys being lonely at the top because she can get all the works.
Well, yes, that's true. It's nice to be able to get works at more reasonable prices. But I think looking at it in the long run, for Indian art to become important, look at Chinese art today and look at what prices they demand. We are nowhere in comparison, and that's because they've been able to get the Chinese interested in Chinese art. They have a lot more collectors than we have, and I think we need to grow that collector base. So I'm very encouraged at this art fair to finally see that very many booths I go to and I say, oh, I like that work, and I'm told, no, that work sold. And then I ask, who bought it? And I'm told, a young collector. So that is very encouraging if newer people are coming in and buying art at more affordable prices. So if we can start this wheel rolling, I think we would have done something great.
I think there's with China, since you mentioned it, China pretty much lost its culture during the revolution. And I think once you go through the process of losing something, you have this desperation to hold on to it and keep acquiring it. I think to me, that's the fundamental difference with the mentality of Indians. And in general, as people, Indians have this very chalta hai attitude. In China, they actually absorbed it and wanted to acquire it. And I hope that we start doing it before it gets lost too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much of Indian art that's overseas and gone in museums. I mean, you go to see Indian ancient art in a museum in London, and you don't see the same thing in India. On that note, what is your motivation to build this museum, this incredible thing that you're doing? And tell them a little bit about the museum first.
Okay, so we are in the process of building a standalone museum, which is going to be built opposite Aero City. We have land which is about 8.5 acres because we can't go vertical. It has to be horizontal because we have a limit of 23 meters. We can't build beyond 23 meters. But we have a very large parcel of land. So, oh, sorry, sorry. So we have this particular land, and we have broken ground about a month ago, and so the fencing of the property is going on, and the ground digging has just about started. It's going to take 6 months because we have 3 basements. Which we have
tell them how large the whole project is. I think that's more
Okay.
interesting.
Okay, so the project all in all is about 1.1 million square feet. So it is large. This is in terms of
Yep. Bravo.
But this is a museum and a cultural center. We feel that if you can join both in some way, the cultural aspect of India, be it music, dance, theater, puppetry, I mean anything, there's so much happening, and then you can join it with what's happening in a museum, with art, and then you can co-join shows of music and art. You can have a huge redefined program. And our main aim of doing this is to get the greater number of people involved to come and see art and culture. It is an essential part of our being, and we shouldn't lose it. And if we are able to do this, it is something that is my aim, my vision, to have this museum through posterity, lasting time out, and being there for many, many years to come.
Bravo, Kiran. I mean, really, that's. It's. Yeah, we all know it's a very, very ambitious project, and we all know you're going to do it incredibly well. But within the museum, what are the so-called aspects of it where it can be more accessible to a larger audience, to a new audience?
Okay. Okay. The brief that we have given out to our marketing and other people doing work at the museum is that this museum must be accessible to every single Indian, be it a scooter driver, a laborer, somebody on the road. Anybody who wants to come in should be allowed to come in. It should not be restricted just to the intelligentsia and the who's who, because they will come. But if we want to grow it to have the common people start getting interested. There is a museum in Bombay called the Bhavdaji Lad. The Bhavdaji Lad is located near the zoo. As a result, all the visitors who go to the zoo started going to Bhavdaji Land. And so they got a varied group of people. Their footfalls went up. And it's a tremendous way of engaging people. And so I thought, I feel they're lucky to have this location where the zoo is next to them and they're able to get people in from the zoo to the museum and joining two different stratas of people. So when I look at things like that happening, I think it's something we should work on to getting various groups of people at all levels to come and interact with us.
If I push that thought a little further, Kiran, what can museums do, and especially what KNMA is doing, to kind of give support to underrepresented communities and artists? We have a whole subculture of indigenous art within India. And today, if you actually go to museums, you see very little of it. Like folk and tribal and, the so-called living traditions of India, which are happening right now. And in some ways, those artists, and predominantly women, are the breadwinners in those families and the economic structure. Do you think museums can play a more important role to kind of represent these people?
I think so. As far as my collecting is concerned, it does span various stratas of art, not just the masters or the progressives. I collect younger artists. I collect folk and tribal.
I know I can't get a single work because you buy it all.
That's not true. You got some before me. Yeah, folk and tribal. I love folk and tribal. I think it has a certain different ethos. I have collected during the opening of the art fair and the 2-3 weeks before that. I think I visited almost every small gallery in Delhi, and through the fair, I have picked up at least one work from every single gallery. I just felt that this was my way of encouraging them to feel that the worst is over and it's going to be much better for us as we go on. So, Dinesh kept telling me, what are you doing? You're buying from every gallery. I said, no, I've liked the work. It's not that I'm just buying things which are not good. I'm buying really nice stuff. But I have tried to buy from every single gallery. And even if it's a small work, I just feel I would like to contribute.
Kiran, I have a lot of questions. I'm going to ask a few more, and then I'm going to spend a few minutes that you get to know Kiran well after this. But the next question I have for you is, this pandemic in many ways has changed mindsets. And to me, I feel that at least, we were locked at home for 4 months, which is probably the most severe lockdown in the world. Do you think that this pandemic has changed mindsets towards the average Indian, towards culture? That they had the time to think, they had the time to engage with it in a private way?
Well, I think it has been an eye-opener for me. I had thought that with the pandemic, the interest in art would really be much less. People would be so involved with their own traumas, problems, families, this whole thing of being in lockdown, trying to readjust their lives, and that art was going to really go on a tremendous back burner. But what has happened is quite different, because art has started to play a greater role in people's lives. People have started looking at art. People who never looked at art for their homes, I'm not talking about expensive art necessarily, but just art, have now started looking at buying small works and putting in their homes, small contemporary work. Contemporary art is becoming important. And the auction houses are doing very, very well at the large level.
Thanks to you, Kiran.
Not just me, the others too. If there was only me, I'd get it at cheap prices. I don't. No, what I'm trying to say is that maybe people's thought has changed, that just having your investments in property or shares or whatever is maybe not the only thing. Maybe we can put some art into our package of what we are living with, and we will enjoy it as well. So I think that is a bit of a mindset. It needs to grow. I mean, if we look at it, when Rockefeller built his building in I don't know, the year of dot, his apartment, I think, was 23 million.
That's when he bought it in the 60s.
When he bought it in the 60s. When he sold it, I think 20 years later, it was 43 million. But the art in it was 3 billion. So he had invested so much of his art and put it into the building. And that's what happens everywhere in America. The property is always 1/10 of the art value of the apartment. So it's important. Art is very important. And knowing about art and culture, I think, is a great, great thing to happen.
You know, just talking about the pandemic, through the pandemic, I think a lot of museums and a lot of cultural activities kind of became digital, online. Do you think going forward with the museum that's coming up, will that aspect of technology and digital be a very strong part of the museum?
I think it's there to stay forever. I don't think the digital part of a museum is going to go. I think it can be linked beautifully with real time. And you can engage, let us say we are in Delhi, we can engage people around the country, around the world, on shows, on activities. Yes, it will get more sophisticated, but I think the digital platform is here to stay.
And I'm not putting you on the spot, but what do you think of this whole NFT thing?
Oh dear. I don't understand NFT, Dinesh, I'm sorry. To me, people selling for what is it, 280 million or 420 million, whatever that figure was, I don't even remember, was really something that I could not comprehend. What I can understand about NFT is if it gives people the right to register their works at a platform on NFT, and that work can then not be replicated, it will give collectors a certain value. But NFT as a platform is something I don't know.
Okay, I knew that answer, by the way. The last question I have before we go into a little rapid fire round, and I won't put you on the spot, don't worry, is, you know, in some ways, like we talked in the beginning, culture plays a very important role in India. Do you think the fact that we have so much of it, that there's such diverse culture within India itself, that we kind of, I've just taken it for granted in many ways? Is that diversity our problem in some ways?
Dinesh, I think that's a very easy question to say, to give that answer. Oh, we have so much of it, we can always see it. Or, I mean, let's see other things first. India's not going away. We can always go. This happens to people living in various places, not just India. Anywhere where there is a surfeit of riches, people do tend to take it easy with their own. And I think that's what it is in India. But I think we have such beautiful things, which, I mean, just imagine that our tourism figures are so abysmally low. Let's forget the pandemic period, which is, of course, you know, affected the whole world and therefore affected us. But before that, our figures were so low compared, and we have so much to offer. I mean, very few countries can have a heritage as rich as ours. So I hope this whole thing, there is going to be an opening up of tourism and other aspects and the growth of that area.
No, I think it's about time that the government takes a much more leading role in kind of absorbing and accepting our own culture. And the question I ask is, what can all of us do to encourage the government to actually make changes where people will accept and enjoy and love our culture.
Okay. Can I just make an appeal to all of you? India this year does not have a pavilion at the Venice Biennale. I think it's very important that after 11 years 2 years ago, before the pandemic, we had a pavilion. It was well received. Even though the government put there, it was based on Gandhi, which was a difficult thought to interpret in a very, Gandhi, it's not contemporary, but to interpret Gandhi in a contemporary way, I think the museum and Culture Ministry and CII had done quite a tremendous job. We were rated the 3rd to the 5th best pavilion. This year, the government did not, for whatever reason, have a pavilion. Nepal has a pavilion at Venice. And out of 88 countries, for India not to be represented is really not so good. So if you would all just write to the culture secretary, culture minister, saying please, not as a criticism of what has happened, but as a thought that we hope for all future Venice events, India will have something to show. If you take this step, and it's taken by the art fraternity, I'm sure maybe the next 2 years, next 4 years, we can work on making Venice a reality for India.
And thank you for all the effort you did the first time around. I know for people who were there, it was probably the highlight of Venice was Kiran Nadar's party, which all of you all were at. On a party note, Kiran, I'm going to do a little rapid fire round with you. Okay, so you just answer what comes to your mind. This is to get to know Kiran Nadar. Let's start with a simple one. What's your favorite color?
White.
White. I never expected that.
There. I'll change it. You give me another chance.
Who's your favorite artist? Indian artist.
Sousa.
Okay. Why?
Because I think now you're going to make me why?
Okay.
Because I think what he projects in the style he works with has a certain reality to his art, reality in his definition, and he hits you hard where it belongs. I think
He does.
he does.
He has that, the enfant terrible of the art world. The third question, if you had to choose to be, 1, a bridge champion, an individual with the most amazing museum, or a sports commentator, what would you choose?
No, sports commentator I wouldn't choose, so that's easily out.
So you got 2 choices
So
there.
I've got 2 choices. I wouldn't want to choose any of them. At this stage in my life, probably art. I'm at an age where I'm getting older for bridge, so I'm still there for art.
Okay. If you could define it in one word, for you, culture is what?
Necessity.
Necessity. Well said. I think it should be a necessity for all of us. Who's your favorite tennis player?
Federer.
Cricket?
Sorry?
Who's the favorite cricket player?
I'm sorry, this is really sad one, but it's still Virat Kohli.
Okay. Why is that sad?
Because he's fallen from grace.
Okay. Your favorite holiday destination?
I'll name 2. One is where I go every year.
Where do you feel that you have to go once a month or once in 2 weeks? That makes you really happy.
This is a very silly question. I do it to my home.
No,
Then?
it's to the parlor.
Oh, don't once in 2 weeks? Every 4 days.
Every 4 days.
No, when the pandemic was on, the place I wanted to go to the most was the parlor. The day I was allowed, I was their first visitor. No, I not anything. I used to see myself in the mirror and I used to say, horrible. And Roshni would say, Mom, who's looking at you? I said, me, I see the mirror.
Okay, the next question. Your favorite painting in the world?
Oh, God, in the world. Oh, God.
Can I give you a hint?
Huh?
Can I give you a hint?
You can give me a hint. It's I'll tell you what it is. It's in the not the Whitney, which is that museum in New York, the small one.
The Frick.
Woman in Gold.
Klimt.
Klimt.
Okay. Yeah. That is a beautiful painting.
I know there were lots coming to me, but somehow that whenever I see it, it makes me cry.
Out of all the paintings that you have in your collection, which is the one that you cherish the most? Or you can name 2 also, or 3.
Okay. So I cherish the newest painting that has been donated to the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art by Navina and Vivan Sundaram. It's the Tahitian woman which is on the cover of his book.
The Amrita Shergill.
The Amrita Shergill. So if any of you do get a chance to see the book, please look at that painting. I cherish the Ravi Verma, Sita in the Moonlight, which is in my home. And I think I cherish the Butcher.
The?
Butcher.
The Butcher, Sousa.
Sousa. Okay. So I think they're all very different paintings, but they all mean different things to me.
Great. To end with a big round of applause for an amazing, amazing person. Thank you, Kiran.